Right, guys, just a quick one to do like a recap of the Division 2 special report thing. We are going to be going over the PTS patch notes, which are live, and there'll be a link in the description if you want to read over themselves. I've done like a full 2-hour live stream over this, going over it in live time. But just in case you can't bother watching that, just going to do the patch notes of essentially what is to come. Now, I'm going to skip over the story part just so that you can remain somewhat spoiler-free. I'm just going to look at, essentially, this is the league. Just like we're rescuing people again, and then the big bad is the recruiter. And one thing they have mentioned is that they are extending the time of the leagues by a week or two, which some people are happy about. Some people like me, who the league takes 30 minutes. Having that league stick around for another week or two is kind of going to get annoying. So I'm with you either way. I get the people that want the leagues to take longer because life gets in the way. I understand that. But at the same time, not everyone is going to be in the exact same position. So I kind of feel like this change is a bit weird and wafty. Obviously, Incursions. The first one is going to be up against Cleaners. There's this big fiery dude here with a massive axe. Looks like he's just fallen out of Warhammer 40k, so I'm all down for that. They've left the details quite vague, but they have said they're going more for a mechanical drive, such as like the raids. It's not going to be complete DPS checks. You're going to want certain builds, etc., to be able to actually complete it. It's not just run in, kill everything, get out. It's you need to be able to survive and have people with the correct builds and good team coordination. Apparently, this is the hardest content yet, so they do recommend going in with 4 players, and there is going to be matchmaking. Onto the big change that I personally feel is a good thing. The Ouroboros SMG, they have not changed the talent. They have, however, decreased its RPM, which is a good thing. Now, I did a video earlier saying that its RPM is way too friggin' unrealistic and it could potentially break the game. So for those people, just to show, if you can't be bothered watching the real video, this is an Elmo build on Strikers. Ends up with 12.8 DPS against the head and 9.4 million DPS against the body. This was what Ouroboros was. This is on Strikers, as you can see. Elmo's is 850 at base, plus 15% from Strikers. Ends up at 978. With Ouroboros on Strikers, you end up with 1,875, or you did. And this is 77% more DPS than Elmo, which is ridiculous. With the new changes, they've decreased the RPM by 10%. This is literally a 10% nerf. That is it, before people start crying. It is still near enough 60% more DPS than Elmo. It's not more DPS, well, it's still more DPS than a FAMAS, but the gap isn't as big on a FAMAS, and it depends on the build you are using. It's all down to this absolutely horrific level of RPM. I still think it's overtuned. I feel like it should just get a better talent and then bring the RPM down to 1,200 in line with the other vectors. Maybe even give it a small damage increase. I feel like the RPM is just far too much. So before people start crying, it is still very powerful. It's still going to be very overtuned, and it potentially still does have the power to break the overall balance economy we have in the game, especially in PvP. But it has been nerfed. Getting the Ouroboros is going to be much, at least from what we understand, much like how we get Eagle Bearer or the Ravenous from the raids. It's a 10% chance once per week. We also assume this is once per character. They didn't say it's per character, but we assume that's where they're going with it. That being said, even with subsequent completions per week, verbatim, however, replaying the Incursion will still grant your boss loot drops with a 1% chance to drop the Ouroboros exotic SMG. 1% for each boss. So your best chance is going to be that first completion per week, but that doesn't mean you still can't get it within the week. Next up is going to be Iron Lung. There have been no changes, at least what we've been told. The one thing I am hoping they have changed is this weapon has 3 attachments. One is plus 35 rounds to the magazine, and the other two, I've forgotten whether it was like muzzle and sight or sight and grip or something, but they were both 10% critical hit damage. However, this being said, technically speaking, Iron Lung is still the highest DPS LMG in the game by quite a bit, by over 100k higher than the next contender. My personal gripe with this is just the talent is pretty bad. I just wish it was better, essentially. And the biggest issue is just the fact that it is still an LMG. Up next, we have the exotic chest, which is all about grenades. This is going to be mostly useless unless you like playing on normal, or apparently, as Daria does, is mispressing buttons and starts throwing grenades everywhere because she has an explosive personality. Yeah, this chest is dead in the water on arrival. Yeah. The Ortiz X0 set, from what I can tell, there has been no changes, or at least from what I remember, there has been no changes. It's still going to be in direct competition to Eclipse, and it is still going to lose hilariously so. With Lengmo, the actual set itself, no changes. Explosive resistance, skill health, LMG damage, useless. The Perfect Mad Bomber, again, no changes. However, there has been a change to Perfect Unstoppable Force. They have changed the stacking. It used to be 5% for 7 stacks. It is now 7% for 5 stacks, which me and a lot of other people did say this is the way it should be. This just about now makes it competitive. It can be worthwhile. It is going to largely depend on what build you're going to put it in. However, in terms of overall meta breaking, or at least changing things up, it's not really going to be end game worthwhile. However, it can hold some pretty good potential on MMR builds for headhunting, simply just because you can get quite a lot of total weapon damage out without having to rely on consistently hitting headshots or taking damage. You just need to kill things, which is probably going to be a good way to go. So this potentially could be, I don't think it's going to be like the absolute best in slot, but it could be a very different way to play. And maybe adding in that 20% explosive resistance along with gaining that bonus armor from Hotshot could be worthwhile in keeping you alive, as where MMR builds are generally quite static. The Perfect Stabilize, the only thing that's actually changed here is we've now got the name. We've got Born Great for the military G36 for Perfect Stabilize, which is, again, redundant. And then Great, or Grown Great. Fucking, that's quite apt, actually, because I'm going to groan about this greatly. Yeah, again, this is useless. The new talent itself has been shown. Now for the bad news. They are keeping the tip of the spear balanced rework, which actually just kills tip of the spear. There's no other way to say it. I know some people can be like, oh, but this just makes tip of the spear more viable for other specializations. The reason we liked tip of the spear, specifically for the TAC 50 specialization, is because that was the best opportunity for it. It's probably one of the best, if not it is the best specialization weapons. In terms of like the minigun, just pick a FAMAS, does more damage. In terms of the grenade launcher, make a mortar build and use the turret, does more damage. Like, the flamethrower is useful for golden bullet farming. The rocket launcher is kind of fun and gimmicky, but it only is really beneficial against robots. But at the same time, robots are health damage. Pick an AR. Yeah, so this completely kills tip of the spear. When it comes to quality of life changes, the DZ is now going to have an exotic cash vendor. They didn't say about the prices. PvP players may be upset or glad to hear that they've reduced the Stinger Hive range by 30%. They've added like a notification thing for the manhunts. So if you're missing something and can't activate the manhunt, you'll get a notification telling you exactly what it is you need to do. There's also a discovery mode for the manhunts that just allows you to play the final mission of each manhunt. This is just so that you're able to catch up with the story if you've forgotten or suddenly care, weirdly, about the story. Which also brings into the Manhunt Legacy thing, which is essentially just the same thing, but you get like narrative recaps, and you can also replay the Manhunt in chronological order, as well as see what the rewards are. They've also done some interesting things with the apparel, such as like if you find a particular hat you want and you want to wear the full set, you can just press the equip set button and it will equip the full set rather than having to go through everything individually. Quite a nice quality of life change, quite interesting. Don't really care about the rest. It's mostly just like widget stuff that just increases or makes it better to make your character look pretty. I don't know about you, but I haven't changed my character's look in about a year. Now for the good news, like this is actually very good. They've introduced various descent mode rewards and how they are played. The loop 9 drop for reconstructed and simulation caches. Tell you what, we'll just show this, it's easier. You can literally max it up or match it up. So loop 3 is a simulation cache and it's a 100% chance. Loop 6, crafting, 100%. Loop 9, simulation, 75%. Loop 12, crafting, 100%. Loop 15, simulation. And then 75% reconstructed. Loop 18 is exotic, and then a 90% chance for reconstructed. Loop 25 is exotic, and then you get a 100% chance for reconstructed. Loop 30 is a reconstructed, and then another 100% chance for reconstructed. Upon killing Nemesis, you're guaranteed an exotic and a 50% chance for reconstructed. The reason this is so nice is the reconstructed caches are where we get the named item blueprints from, which now means we can essentially just, if we take our time and we can sort of spam ourselves to like loop 15 and do Nemesis, which should take, hour and a half, we have a semi-decent chance of getting reconstructed caches through this, which hopefully won't be as time-consuming, and we can get the items we're after. Finally, which potentially will be really hilarious, but I feel like this potentially will get nerfed, is new talents added to the Descent. We have in the utility Shock and Awe, which applying a status increases total weapon damage. Or is it total skill damage? We'll figure it out. In Sync, I feel that this could potentially be worthwhile. Perpetuation, headshots increase status effects. Ignited. These all might be slightly different in the Descent mode, but Ignited after a certain amount of kills, the next enemy you shoot is set on fire, and you get a 20% amp. Salvage, getting a kill has a chance to refill the magazine. Offensive, Intimidate, which is going to work very well with Bloodsucker, which I know a lot of people like. Rifleman, getting headshots increases weapon damage. Overwhelm, suppressing an enemy increases weapon damage. Pummel, after X amount of kills, refills the magazine and gives a damage increase. For exotic, we're getting kinetic momentum. I don't get why this is exotic. I don't. Empathic resolve. I don't get why this is exotic. I don't understand why they're doing this. Regicide, which for those that don't know, this is the Regulus exotic talent. Headshot, go boom. If you're with me, right, you're reading Rifleman, Pummel, Regicide, M870. Descent just got done. And then obviously Liberty of Death, which I feel like this could be weird, and it depends on what iteration they put in. For defensive, we have Efficient. This could be quite worthwhile because if memory serves, which we're going to go back to here, we're going to go to Gear Talents. Where is Efficient? Using an armor kit has a 75 or 50% chance to not consume the armor kit. Specialization armor kit bonuses are increased by 100%. This could be quite worthwhile in terms of defensive capabilities, simply just because using an armor kit might not consume an armor kit. And considering how we don't like dying in Descent because it means start again, yeah, this could be of some pretty good benefit. Anyway, that covers it. I'm hoping this was a quick and concise enough recap. Have fun. Good luck. Don't die. It's bad for the health.